Hello. So for my first reaction paper, I'm going to be talking about the 21st chapter in the incidents in the life of a slave girl. And I just wanted to give a bit of background on the chapter. It's called The Loophole of Retreat. And this is when Harriet is making her escape from Dr. Flint's plantation and ends up at her grandmother's house in a small shed in like the top of the roof. And a quote I just want to say about that is, it was a pent roof covered with nothing but shingles, according to the Southern custom for such buildings. The garret was only 9 feet long and 7 feet wide. The highest part was 3 feet high and sloped down abruptly to the loose board floor. There was no admission for light or air. I just thought this was like an important quote for the chapter that I used for my close reading because it shows what Harriet's willing to do to escape slavery and the oppression and the struggle that she went through on a day-to-day basis. Along with that, I think that her escape is a bit different and to me more inspiring than some others, just because she could have fled to the north and started a new life without her family and never looked back. But instead she stayed local, she stayed close, and decided to be able to watch over her family. And I think this connects to the bigger image of the book, because at the end of the book, she mentions how she's end up reuniting with her daughter, and her son Benny has moved out to California with her brother. And I think that just starts here with her commitment to her family and staying calm in a time of craziness and chaos and escaping Dr. Flint and all that was really truly inspiring to see. And I just thought Harriet's efforts were just crazy and very out of the ordinary. And the next quote I wanted to use was, he offered her a reward if she could find out anything about me. I know not what was the nature of her reply, but he soon after started for New York in haste, saying to his family that he had business of importance to transact. And I think that this goes to the point about Harriet being super smart and staying local. I think that Dr. Flint would do anything to keep Harriet, sort of to just continue his mental and almost physical and sexual like harassment of her. And I think that this speaks a lot to Harriet's commitment to her family as well. Because obviously Dr. Flint is expecting her to go up to New York or some northern state for freedom, and she dupes him. And I just thought that was really interesting. And I think that this chapter shows how Harriet is beyond committed to her family over anything else. And she sees her family as much more of a priority than her own well-being. And staying in that cold garret in the roof of her grandmother's shed was really inspiring, and I think that speaks volumes to the message of her book, which is she didn't write this for fame or attention or anything like that. She wrote it to send a message, and I think that message sort of plays down to her kids when her son spoke up for her and said, Dr. Flint, I don't know where my mother is. I guess she's in New York, and when you go there again, I wish you'd ask her to come home, for I want to see her. But if you put her in jail or tell her you cut her head off, I'll tell her to go right back. I think this sums up the chapter perfectly, as it is the last sentence of the chapter, because it shows how Harriet has made a lasting impact on her family and how they're willing to stay loyal. And I think that her children look up to her because of her message and because of the overarching message of this book, which is that there's no real attention that needs to come to Harriet. She didn't write this for her personal gain or her personal wealth. She wrote it to send a message to future generations saying, this is what we went through and this needs to be addressed. And I think that completely rubs off on her kids because they totally understand the situation. They had to go through it themselves, And they were willing to do anything for her because she set that good example for them. And I think that Harriet's attitude and motivation plays on throughout this whole book and is the overarching theme of the message she is trying to send. That no matter what the circumstances are and what you go through, that you can make it out, but you got to get your priorities straight, and that you can't be selfish and just run. You have to account for the people around you. And I think Harriet does a great job of that here. And I think the overarching message of doing this to send a message to not only the Black community, but the white community and everyone around it, to take notice that what is going on in slave times was wrong. And I think Harriet executes that perfectly, and I think this chapter is a great representation of the overarching message.